Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the MD Investor, the channel where we talk personal finance, increase our personal financial IQ, so we can break the cycle of generational poverty. Today's episode is going to be about your net worth. Today's episode is going to be about your net worth. Sounds like something that only rich and wealthy people talk about. What's your net worth? Sticking your nose up. No, it is a fundamental personal finance metric that we haven't really been taught about. It's only been talked about usually with the wealthy crowd, but it's a very important metric that we need to be aware of and we need to calculate and assess as well. What is your net worth? Your net worth is basically your assets minus your liabilities. That's it. Your net worth is basically your assets minus your liabilities. Or in other words, what you own and then you minus what you owe. So assets. I do like the definition that Rich Dad Poor Dad Robert Kiyosaki uses. That an asset is something that put money in your pocket. I think it's a great way to think, the great way for you to move and maneuver. But an asset, in this example, is going to be anything that has value. So the home that you live in, it has value, right? If you can go and sell it on the market and you can get money for it, even though on a month-to-month basis, it probably actually takes money out of your pocket. But we're going to leave that aside for now. Anything that has value. So real estate, the house where you live, or any investment property you may have. Your 401k, your IRA, so your retirement accounts, those have value. Those have value, as well as other brokerage account, non-retirement that you may have. Savings account, checking account, CDs. These are things that have value. Your car, your boat, the clothes on your back, your furniture. These are things that have value. Jewelry. Mm-hmm. So you add the total values of those things up, and the value is going to be the current market value if you were to sell them, not what you paid for them, right? Because we know some things are depreciating, right? Your car, you might have paid, $50,000 for it, 5 years ago, but now it's not worth that much. So you add all the you take a sum total of the value of all of those. Mm-hmm. And let me add this right here too. There's assets subcategory called hard assets and liquid assets. Hard assets are things that they do have value, but if you were to sell them, it would take some time to extract the value. Perfect example is your house. To sell your house, you don't just sell it and get the cash the next day. You have to put the house on the market. You have to get a real estate agent. You may have to do some repairs before the house is put on the market. And then you have to do an open house. You have to get an accepted offer, and then they have to do the buyer have to do their due diligence, and they have to get a mortgage. I mean, it's a process. So these are called hard assets, where it takes time to extract the value, as opposed to liquid assets, where you can get the value in several days. For example, perfect example would be a brokerage account. You have a brokerage account, and you can sell the stocks, and within 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 business days, you can have the value back into your checking account, right? So let's look at liabilities. Again, liabilities are Robert Kiyosaki or the Rich Dad Poor Dad says liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. And I love that for a day-to-day mentality in terms of strategizing and what you want to and how you want to move. But liabilities in this example is going to be things that we owe. So we may owe a perfect example. Things that we owe a mortgage. You have a home, it has this market value, but you owe this much to the bank. It's a note. So a mortgage is a liability. Credit card debt is a liability. Personal loans, furniture loans, student loans, these are all liability, right? So to get or to calculate your net worth, you're going to add up the total value of your assets and subtract from that the total value of your liabilities. And that's it. And it's a nice gauge or temperature to assess where you are. Another good thing that this can do is it enables you to see the progress that you're making, if you're making progress, because you can compare your net worth this year versus your net worth last year. You can compare your net worth this month for people who want to get really finely fine detail. You can compare your net worth this month versus your net worth last month and see in what direction are you moving. So your net worth obviously can be negative if your liabilities exceeds your assets. Your net worth can be zero if your assets and liabilities are exactly the same. And your net worth can be positive if your assets exceeds the value of your liability, which is the one that we want. Okay, so let's do a couple of quick examples. Um, let's look at example number one. Example number one is a renter, right? Example number one is a renter. This renter had $10,000 in savings, right? They have $10,000 in savings, and they have, and that's all their assets. Let's say that's all their assets to make it simple. And they have a credit card debt of $9,000. That's all their liability. Credit card debt of $9,000. $10,000 in savings minus $9,000 in credit card debt. They have a net worth of $1,000. And this is a great example of how your net worth can focus you in what direction you need to go. They have a net worth of $1,000. What direction does this person need to go? One, it's great that their net worth is positive, but depending on the credit card interest rate, which we know historically is going to be very high, and how much you're paying on that $9,000 debt, I mean, it's essentially costing them a lot. So that $9,000 in credit card debt needs to be eliminated. Their $10,000 in savings account, they're not getting any interest on that. We know that already. The credit card debt of $9,000 is probably very high interest rate. So the suggestion for this person would be to take the money into savings and pay down that credit card debt. There'd be a lot better, right? And it's a good example of how your net worth kind of points you to direction what you should do. Let's look at example number two. Example number two, the homeowner. Homeowner, they have a home that's valued at $500,000. And they have a mortgage on a home of $200,000. So their net worth is the difference between $500,000 the value of the home and $200,000 in mortgage of $300,000. That's their net worth, right? We're trying to make everything simple so by not making it too complicated. Number three, let's look at an investor. They have a 401k retirement value of $300,000. They have a regular non-retirement brokerage account of $200,000. So combined, about $500,000. Their home is valued at $600,000. So you add up all their assets: the $300,000 in their retirement 401k, the $200,000 in the brokerage, that's $500,000, and the value of the home is $600,000. Total assets is $1,100,000 or $1.1 million. They have a mortgage on a home of about $100,000. So that's 1.1 million minus 100,000. Their net worth is $1 million, right? So that person is doing pretty good. The only issue is I would see here that half of their net worth is in their home, which is hard assets. The other half is in liquid. But the last thing I'll say is that your net worth is not equivalent to your self-worth. Sometimes people feel bad that my net worth is negative. So I'm a negative person. My net worth is zero, so I'm not worth. No. This is just financial metrics, and it gives you an idea of where you are currently and in what direction you will need to move, right? Our net worth can be increased by one of two ways: decreasing our liabilities or increasing our assets. Sometimes you look at your statement and you see that I have plenty of assets, but I need to decrease my liabilities. Or you may say, I need to increase my assets. I really don't owe anything, but I have no assets. I work. I need to use some of that money for my work, some of that cash flow and buy some assets, right? So again, guys, the MD Investor trying to increase our financial IQ so we can teach our children and break the cycle of generational poverty. Would appreciate a like, subscription, send the video to a friend. And until next time, continue to command your money to grow.